All right, so this is week 4 assessment. And for this week in the reading and exploring, let's see, for the readings, you have tech tools to enhance multiple choice. Why is assessment important? And formative and summative assessment. There's going to be some questions in Blackboard for you to answer on that. Let's see, for the exploring, you also have Kahoot, Socrative, Plickers, ClassKick, Nearpod, Quizzes, and Flubaru. Flubaru is kind of obsolete. You don't got to worry about that. I haven't used Quizzes, but these are awesome. These up here are pretty awesome. I'm familiar with them. And they're not in the Tech Quest, but I'm going to give you a line that you can replace and then use one of these for 10 points. So yes, I would encourage you to go through these here underneath the exploring. This week, what you must complete, you must get the discussion board on the weekly reading. Keep working on your tech quest. At the end of this week, you should be close to 100 points. If you're not, you could always make them up, but I will be giving you a grade showing where you are. And again, if you're not there, you could always make it up. For example, you could have 100 points and we have 3 weeks of school left, and then you do everything correctly and catch up, and then you have 400 points and you're never penalized. What I mean is there's no late work when it comes to the tech quest. So what you will be able to replace with those exploring parts are line 28, Google Script, with anything in the Explore section. And then at the end of this presentation, or after this presentation, I'm also going to have an optional tutorial on making a Google form for assessments, and that one's worth 20 points. So the nuts and bolts of assessment. Formative assessments are the day-to-day monitoring. So when you're going around checking for understanding in the classroom, kind of give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. Those would be formative assessments. A summative assessment usually is like the benchmarks, the unit test, the final exam that you're taking. So technology can make a lot of our tasks easier. One of the ways that it does so is if, for example, I've had students where they're supposed to write an essay for me, and then it's difficult to read, and you tell the student to type it, and then you see the student typing, and the typing it's not working out for them. They're going very slow. One of the things that technology can do to help with this task, because you're not trying to assess their penmanship. You're not trying to assess whether or not they can type. You're trying to assess whether or not they can organize the information. And so something like voice typing comes in handy when you're doing that type of assessment. And I've had students use that in a special education setting where one of my students had dysgraphia, and he couldn't write, but he sure could talk into the voice typing and let me know what his thoughts were. So technology can make assessments easier. Something like voice typing is one of those ways. Technology can also make the task personal. I had another student in an intervention class, ninth grade, who was having trouble, who was just having trouble all around, behavior-wise and academically. And then I got the student into creating his own tutorials, and then through him creating his own tutorials, it was interesting because one was that we found that he enjoyed making the tutorials in Arabic, which was the language that he was speaking primarily at home, and then he would go and take those tutorials home and share them with his mom, share them with his dad, and his parents would talk about how they were proud that he was making the work and talking about how smart he was. Well, for me, it also worked as an assessment, and he wasn't the only student in the class doing it. It was a rather small class because it was an intervention class, but I had all the students making tutorials, and when they're actually going through the tutorials and doing it, it was pretty cool because it's almost like it was almost a test because I could see where they were breaking down, where their mistakes were, but it was documenting it in a better way than simply just having them write. So these are a couple tutorials. This one here is in Arabic. This one here is in English, and it's pretty cool stuff. So again, an assessment doesn't just have to be simple pen and paper. Something like a video can also document how a student is progressing and moving forward. This is another way that I actually did assessments, where during class I started to record the lessons. It was I had the camera set up almost kind of like an Elmo, and when they were recording the lessons, I began to save them. And as I was saving them, I had students also come up and create them. So this is one in Spanish, creating decimals or division with decimals. Let's see.
Una división de 7, dividir 17.15. Y primero lo que vamos a hacer, vamos a ver qué podemos multiplicar para agarrar 17. Y 7 no puede ir en 17 en 1, entonces vamos a hacer 17. Y lo más cerca puede ser 14. Ponemos un 2, quitamos 14. Y eso es 0. Y 7, quítale 4, 3. Bajas el 1. Y va a ser 5 veces. Y le vamos a quitar 35. Y no queda nada. Y
so what I went on to do with these was I would I put them onto my website, and you would be able to put them on your Tech Quest or on a website like your Tech Quest, and then the kids they would go and they would answer the questions. I would put the questions up on the board, and then the questions that they missed, they would just go back in and watch the tutorial of their friends actually making them. And that became one of the coolest assessments because I had a couple of students that it was hard for me to really reach them, but boy, were they focused when it was the video of their own friend explaining to them how to actually do the work. And so that was something that changed my that changed my perception on what we can be doing with not only tutorials but with assessment. Let's see. So going further, you could also make video tutorials when you're assessing students for the sake of making a video tutorial. This one here was another one at a ninth grade level, and the student created an entire tutorial around a word problem that he made. And in this class, I actually had all the students making tutorials, and it was fun. Again, you could see where the kid was working, what they were able to do, what they could break down, and then it also helped them with the recall because they were able to watch and see how they were doing it later, which really helped them retain the information. Let's see. So technology can also make some of these tasks much cooler. So there's a regular assessment. So let's pretend that this is this is a little math performance task is what we would call it. And as a student, you would have to answer all of these questions. And so what this worksheet is it's a worksheet based on a math problem that was taking place at the high school, and this was at Lindsay High School. So this is the football field, and then it says some of this stuff's real basic. Between the 10 and 20-yard line, the turf was destroyed. LHS needed to have it repaired before the big homecoming game. What is the total area of the turf that will need to be replaced? Now, you can give them a worksheet, have them do that, have them read it, but oftentimes, not oftentimes, it depends what students you have. But with the students that I had, which were kind of in the tough neighborhood, low socioeconomic, and a lot of the students were underachieving or not underachieving, but a lot of the students weren't up to grade level. Um, it wasn't just about giving them the worksheet. It was about going out to the football field, telling them what we're going to measure, actually measuring it. Then we came out and we created a scale model. And then after creating a scale model, we created a 3D model. And then after doing all those activities, we went in and started answering the questions. And wouldn't you know, they were able to do it much better than when we just did it this way. So you can have them read it and answer it that way. You can go all out and create an experience around it, and you have to really think which is the more authentic assessment. Is this really assessing them, or is this more so assessing what they can read? Is this really assessing them, and are they going to retain and recall this better after they go through the experience? So from there, I actually had the kids create these little virtual 3D models that explain the word problems, and then some of them also went on to make tutorials for it. Technology can also make some tasks unique. So a regular traditional assessment is having a students write an essay. Well, again, with the students that I work with and in schools that are considered to be underachieving, an essay is it's a drag. But in the essay that we did here as a class, we actually did it all embedded with. Sorry, I'm gonna skip this one. We actually did it all while learning how to create virtual reality. So we went into this website here called NewsCLA, and you could actually click on it and see the articles. But the articles, you can choose what level you want to read the articles at. So my students got to choose between reading about virtual reality in football, virtual reality in former President Obama, virtual reality in shopping, virtual reality in empathy. And then after learning about what virtual reality is, being able to describe what virtual reality is, we actually went and started learning how to create 3D models because we were going to make our own virtual reality experiences. So as we learned how to make the 3D models, the kids then we started making this tree map here, talking about what the different components you needed in order to build a 3D model. So this ended up here. This here ended up being one paragraph in our essay on creating virtual reality. This ended up being a second paragraph on creating virtual reality. And then finally, we created our virtual reality experiences. And then this here was the essay that they wrote. And the essay was much more meaningful. And then it was a much more authentic assessment. And again, we used the work from NewsCLA. And this project was very successful with many students who had behavior interventions. This here is a student tutorial. This is pretty cool. I encourage you to watch it. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but it's a young sixth grade student, and he's telling you how he actually created a model in 3D, how he put it out into virtual reality, and then published the entire experience, and that was part of the essay. So in a way, he's basically giving you an oral essay of or a verbal essay of what we did through that tutorial. Um, you don't have to search that link, but yeah. So assessments can be projects. Assessments can be authentic, meaning that it's based on real life situations. It doesn't just have to be an assessment that's a regular test, even though kids do take regular tests. And so that's it for the lecture for this week. If you want to get some points at the end here, you could watch the next tutorial to get points. And don't worry about this link here for your smartphone.